Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to Front Row Chaos with your host, Travis Smith, my good friend and good buddy. Yeah!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time again for another episode of Front Row Chaos. I am your host, Travis Smith, and I am honored that you are listening to this program. And I hope you keep coming back to this program because we always have an interesting topic or an interesting person on when we do these shows. And today is no exception. Today I'm going to have another special guest on my show. He is my oldest son, Brenden Smith, and he is here to talk about some high school experiences, and we're going to go into where he went after high school, what he's doing now, and where he wants to end up. So thank you again, Brenden, for coming here. Let me introduce you to my son, Brenden Smith. How you doing, Brenden?
Doing great.
Well, thanks for coming to the studio to do this taping with me. I know you are a busy young man, and now we are on summer break for you. So go ahead and tell us a little bit of, let's start off here. We're going to start off when you were younger, and you are...
Yeah, so I have two younger brothers. I'm the oldest, so one Tanner. He is, what is he now? 20, going on 21 soon.
Yep.
And then younger brother than that, Brady, is going to be a sophomore in high school. So, and then of course you, my dad, and mom.
Yes. Now, you grew up in Biggs, California, and went to high school here. And can you tell me what your high school experience was like?
High school for me, honestly, was great. I really enjoyed going to Biggs High School. It's something that, some kids in America, I feel like, don't get to experience a small town high school feel. I tell my wife stories about high school, and she's a little bit amazed about some of the stuff we were allowed to do, stuff that she said she'd never be able to do at her school. But I really enjoyed all my friends, hanging out with them every day. And just the fact that I kind of got to do anything as far as, extracurricular stuff, whether it be sports, FFA, really got to be able to do all that kind of stuff because of that small town high school feel. So Biggs was really great. If you look back on it and you're really happy you went there is what I feel.
Now, when you were in high school, you did play sports.
Yes, I played football, basketball, and baseball.
All right. And out of those three, what's your favorite?
Oh, of course, football. Football would have to be the best.
But I will have to say that at your end of your baseball career, you were doing really well.
Yeah, I'd have to say that I was probably better, at least batting, at baseball than probably other sports and anything else. But where my passion lied was with football, definitely. I just enjoyed the sport a lot over any other sport.
Now, how, on the batting aspect, how did you get that eye for baseball?
I got pretty much in all my sports, I got to my best performance my senior year. But my senior year didn't start out very good. I had a few strikeouts. I really was not having a great year up until we were just about to start our league. And actually, we were at a tournament in Redding, California, I believe. And
yeah, the Field of Dreams, right?
Yeah, the Field of Dreams. I forget what they call that tournament. It might be the Field of Dreams tournament.
Yeah.
But so we were there, and I struck out again, and you and might have been Mom. I don't know who was pushing it more, but told me to go into the batting cages. Usually you go to the normal setting, normal speed. But I went into the batting cage that was throwing about 90, 95 miles per hour. And, you don't see that, at least at a small town high school level, you don't see that very often. That's elite throwing speed. So I got in there and, of course, going through like 20, 30 balls and not hitting a single ball, just striking out every time, not hitting anything. So it took me probably like up until like 70 balls in that I finally realized, oh, I got to step before, how you see it sometimes watching the MLB, they're stepping before the ball even comes up because it's so fast. And I started hitting the ball and I started consistently hitting it over and over and over again. And after that, when you go back to pitchers that don't throw that fast, you really have that confidence, and it's like, wow, I can hit off of whoever now because I know that I can hit the fastest speed I'll ever see in my life.
I remember that day. I think you burnt about $30 of mine getting that eye down. But
I believe it.
but I believe, well, I know it was worth it because it seemed to make you a better hitter. I mean, by the end of your high school career, you were batting over 500.
Yeah, and I don't think after that moment, I'm trying to remember, it might have slipped my mind, but I don't remember striking out again that season
Well,
after that moment.
And that's kind of what I was kind of telling the coach this year when he asked me to come help him coach, and I was telling him about that experience and how it really changed you because when you get into high school, sometimes you face good pitchers and sometimes not, but you definitely don't face anybody throwing that fast.
Yeah.
And so that made a big difference. Now, kind of along the lines of basketball, I remember when you started out in basketball when you were a freshman and then all the way up to your senior. How was that? How'd that go?
Oh man, we really were not great at basketball up until my senior year. With my freshman year, I thought I was a lot better at basketball than I was, but I found out real quick that I'm not the athlete that I was at basketball, and man, I had so many turnovers. I was put at point guard, and mentally, I don't think I was ready for it because I didn't practice dribbling quite enough, not as much as my younger brother Brady. He loves that stuff, but I was not a dribbler, and I remember my freshman year, we got to the point where we had, I think, 6 players on our team, one guy, and even one game, one of the kids got suspended, and we were down to 5 total players on our team.
Ooh.
And so that was kind of the story of my high school basketball career up until our senior year. I don't know how, but our senior year we kind of figured it out, and we almost went to the championship game that year.
Now, was that the year we went to Chester?
Yes, that is the year. That was the semifinal game in Chester.
And that's the year Kurt took out the big guy.
Yeah, that was one of the highlights. He was probably like 6'6".
Oh, yeah,
he was
was
ginormous, but Kurt know how to take him out of the game. So
I think I mentioned to Kurt, hey, Kurt, you know what to do, right? And he goes, I got it.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, the guy's on the bench. So that worked out pretty good for us that time. But we didn't win the game, though.
No, we didn't. But it was good. I mean, I'll tell you, there's no one who knows how to box out more aggressively than Kurt Shepard. That is for sure. Everyone was scared to go against him.
So, and then in that season, you got an award for defensive player?
Yeah, I think I got all league for the defense. I'm pretty sure that's what I got. I know that at one point I had the most steals and I think the most blocks.
Yeah.
At one point in the
And
season.
you're not an extremely tall kid, 5'11", right? 6
No.
foot. So what got you to be able to jump high enough to block shots?
I really don't think I jumped super high. I think my good thing was I was good at timing when people were going to shoot, and I was really good at meeting them kind of at the rim. Like I remember I was pretty good at, people doing reverse layups. I could meet them because I knew where the ball would have to leave, where it would be on its way to touch the glass. So in no way was I ever jumping above the rim, like LeBron James. But I think I was just good at kind of timing out when to block it when they were going to go up for the shot.
Well, that I remember distinctively having several people say, man, he's really good at like timing that or blocking and like I said, usually you have the big guy down low that does most of that stuff.
Yeah, I think our senior year we really were a good team because we didn't have any tall people. Like years before, we had one of the guys in the class above me, Caleb Melton. He was a taller guy, but we really didn't have anyone. We were all about maybe 6 foot, and Kurt and other people were a little bit shorter. So, we kind of had to deal with what we had. So you just kind of had to get good at timing blocks, timing when they're going to look, making them look away and stealing the ball when you're.
Well, I remember I made you that jump box out in the garage.
Yeah.
I think that probably helped.
Yeah,
too.
that helps. Any kind of jumping practice, I mean, that'll get you.
Yeah. Now, football, you said, is your your favorite sport.
Yeah.
So where did you start off in football?
Well, as far as career goes, I started back when I was 7. Started with, it used to be, so Pop Warner, what they call it, Little League football, I guess some people would know it as. Used to be called the Gridley Bulldogs. That was the one year that I was with them. They were called that. And then years after, I played pretty much every year until my 8th grade year, and we were the Gridley Titans.
Oh, that's when they changed the name.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, so you started out there, and you kind of went from there and progressed from. Where did you start out playing?
My first year, I was a guard, an offensive
Gotcha.
guard.
And there's nothing wrong with that either, by the way. Because I was a guard in high school.
But yeah, so I was a guard. I think my second year I was a fullback. They don't really have that much anymore. And then after that, I want to say I was a tight end for a couple years.
Yes.
And then when I got maybe sixth grade, seventh grade, maybe I changed into a quarterback, and that was mainly for no other reason except we didn't have a quarterback. There was no established quarterback at the time.
Gotcha.
And I remember you telling me like, hey, if they need a quarterback, you don't be afraid to try it out, and that's where I kind of got that started.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't know what a quarterback position is, which I assume most people who are listening do, but if you don't, when you're young, especially when you're in the Titans or when you're starting out young in life, in that position, I noticed that not only do you have to have somewhat an athletic ability, but you got to be able to remember.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you did well.
Yeah, I that's one of the hardest things I think at a younger age is, you're really kind of like the parent on the field of
Yeah.
like you're telling every kid is going to come up to you at least once in the game and ask, "Hey, what do I do this play?"
Yep.
And there's no one else that you can look to and ask. You're the person who has to know it. So it does come with a lot of mental strain. It's when you get older too, it doesn't really change. People will still ask you, but it's even more so when you're young because everyone's going to be asking you what to do.
Yeah. I remember that on several practices, the kids just couldn't quite remember. Because even down in the Titans or the youth football, the plays are really no different sounding than they are in high school.
No.
In fact, sometimes they're worse.
Yeah.
Because it's give me can you rattle off a play that you maybe had that you remember that you can't
Oh, our coach, I remember, Coach Sean was one of the
Oh,
coaches.
yeah.
He made them pretty simple for us. Like the one pass play or one of the two pass plays we had was just like I think it was tight right, red strike.
Strike. There you go.
And so it's it's just something simple, but like you said, you'll have plays like that in high school. You just have the formation and then the play. You'll just have to remember what that means when it's said.
And that's the easy part. The hard part to me that I would think would be hard is when all the kids who in different positions come up and say, now, am I going left or right? Or,
Yeah.
I remember, running those plays and watching you. It's like, okay, now on this play, if I hike it, I got to step to my left because that's where the running back's coming, or I got to step to my right, or I got to roll out. So it takes a lot of, if you're thinking about being a quarterback, it takes a lot of memory and it takes a lot of repetition.
Yeah, it's really getting muscle memory down because it's a lot of thinking that goes on, but you don't want to be doing that thinking in a game. You just want to have it happen. So if you can get the memory down and figuring out, okay, I don't need to think about when I drop back, this is how I step. It's just muscle memory. That's when you start playing and having fun with it.
And when you did that, and a lot of people rely on their speed if they get into trouble. Was that in your case?
No, not until I got a little older. I remember, well, who knows
so you
how
still
fast.
had a trailer on.
Yeah. Who knows how fast I was? And, when you're young, you think you're pretty fast. But then when I got into high school my freshman year, and I'd been a quarterback, and I'd been skill positions a few times in Titans, but got there my freshman year. Now, I don't know if this is official. We were using a stopwatch at Biggs, and we didn't have turf or anything to measure off. But I remember I ran about I think it was like a 6.4 40 time.
Ooh, that's
so
smoking.
6 seconds, 6.4 seconds. So, and I think I was on par with some of the linemen that were running. I think they ran some of them faster than me, some of them about the same. So that didn't help. I knew that wasn't in my game plan whenever I was younger.
Now, the high school game compared to the Titans game.
Yeah. So from when you're coming into high school, you're always kind of jittery because you're thinking, oh man, this is what I've been watching my whole life. Yeah, you think it's the big time until there's more past it. But because I played 2 years of JV, kind of like normal people, normal everyone else. I played 2 years JV, 2 years varsity. So going into JV, you're really nervous, and the speed increases somewhat in JV, but I don't remember it being monumental of like, oh, this is way different than what I was used to. Maybe that was because we played a team by, I think, Los Molinas was the first year, and they were not the best.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a good introduction to high school. But, you play a good team, then you kind of see, okay, speed, that's kind of the thing with any time you go up a level in football. you just notice that the speed of the game increases a little bit more. Not monumentally, but enough to make you notice it that, hey, people are faster up here. The plays are moving a bit faster, whereas
They're
when
smarter.
when you're younger, you'll have kids running around not knowing what they're doing. They'll be, it's just kind of chaos each play, whereas here, get a little more organized each time.
Well, I remember when you were a freshman, you had Caleb Milton on your team.
Oh, yeah.
And Caleb is about 6'6" and a good athlete. And so I remember a couple of times the head coach just said, hey, throw the ball to Caleb, get open, right?
Yeah. And that's how it kind of goes when you're younger. It's you're kind of a dream come true if you have a tall receiver or tight end. Because when you're younger, there's not a lot of kids that can really stop that. So it is kind of how it is. Just like, hey, throw it up to him and hope he catches it.
That's correct. So, and then we go into the sophomore year, and a little bit more refined and kind of the same, or is it now we got a more level team because Caleb goes up, right?
Yeah, it was kind of surprising, like Caleb left, and there were some other athletes on theirs too, and they all kind of left, and it wasn't really sure because we didn't know the class below us kind of what they had because not a lot of them had played youth football. It was kind of,
Gotcha.
because you get that in high school. You're not going to all have people, at least at smaller schools, you're not going to have a bunch of kids who've been playing their whole life.
Sure.
So it came together, and actually I remember the beginning of that season, it started off a little bit slow. I think we lost our first game, and then our second game, the refs never showed up, so we ended up just scrimmaging it.
That was Williams.
Yeah, that was Williams, which was actually turned out to probably be a good thing because they were our nemesis. So, but
the Yellow Jackets.
But we got it figured out that year. I don't remember really what changed or whatever, but I don't think we were ever really a bad team ever that year. It's just we had to figure ourselves out. And after that, we kind of went on a roll. I don't remember how many games exactly we won, but it's JV. You're not going to playoffs or anything.
Sure.
But your kind of thing there at JV level is if you can win your league, which are a choice few teams in your in your little division that you play against each year. And we ended up tying for first place there with, I think, University Prep was the school.
Yeah, and University Prep has come a long way since the days when they first started.
Yeah, we had some good teams that we played against. I don't know what we did, but the coaching was really good, obviously, and we just kind of figured out. And like you said, we didn't have any kind of all-stars at that moment. We all just kind of played together in a very good way. Yeah, in a very good way.
Yeah, and that'll be another podcast about my high school experience.
Yeah, I've heard about that a few times.
So now we go into varsity.
Yeah.
Now we're in the big time.
Yeah.
Right? And now you got Caleb back.
Yep.
You're back at quarterback.
Yep.
And you go through that season, and you went down and got some coaching by Mike Johnson.
Yeah,
which is a guy I ran into at a coaching clinic.
Yeah, I would say, that's when I really kind of improved a lot. And I'll never say, like, I had it all down ever.
Yeah.
But, man, the jump that I made in that year just in the passing department, if anyone's out there and wanting to get better at the quarterback position, I suggest you find someone who is professionally good at training quarterbacks because that's what this guy was. He'd trained with Alex Smith, if you guys knew him. He doesn't play anymore, but just recently retired. Mike Vick, I'm sure many of you have heard of him. And he also played a little bit, I believe, in the NFL and in the Canadian League.
And he was the coach of the Niners for a short stint. And I think he took the spot of the head coach that got canned.
Yeah, and since then, after my time with him, he even coached at University of Oregon, Mississippi State.
That's right.
So he's been he's been around the sport of football, but he knew the quarterback position. And I remember the first day I got with him, I went back and I thought I was pretty good. Our sophomore year is pretty good. And I'm just a small town kid, so I think that I'm pretty good. And I remember that he got there and he said, all right, throw me the ball. And I didn't even throw the ball yet. I just put it up to my chest, like getting ready to throw it. And he said, all right, stop. He's like, you don't throw it right. And I'm like, well, shoot. And that kind of that humbled me a bit because that day he put me through a workout and I was doing pretty much everything I'd ever known wrong. But, if you're humble and you can figure that out, that's what kind of helped me because he just said you do these simple, monotonous, boring, repetitious things every day and you're going to get better. And I really saw that.
Muscle memory
because, as a quarterback, he told me accuracy is all in your feet.
Oh, yeah. And I remember we would go down all the way to Oakland to see him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or actually, it wasn't Oakland. It was Santa Clara.
Santa Clara, yeah.
That's where we would go meet him on a Saturday and do a 2-hour workout with him.
Yeah.
And then we drive all the way home, so that was a whole the whole Saturday
Yeah.
gone.
And I mean, like I said, like those lessons were awesome, and it was him teaching me, like, you kind of skip over when you don't have that in your life of someone telling you, hey, don't forget the basics. I didn't even really know the basics, but then once he taught me, it was just stuff you never thought about, and dropping back, what your feet, how you should set up. But then once you did that and you did it over and over again, the position just became so much easier.
Yeah.
And I was going through like summer, just throwing with my receivers. I would go through a whole day without having a ball touch the ground sometimes,
Yeah.
just because I had it down and I worked on that, and it paid off. It really helped me a
Well, I
lot.
remember you were saying that we kind of jump ahead in small towns a lot of times with coaching. And when he came up here one time and he was watching your receivers run, and he goes, they don't know how to run.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. And you know that from going on to college level.
Yeah, no, and I'll talk about that more too, because there's just so much you don't know until like if I could go back in time with the stuff I know now, it'd be like really different.
Yeah.
Because you learn so much along the way, and of course, as science goes along, you learn new things about the human body and how best to perform.
That's right. So you leave high school and you're going to where after high school?
So after high school, I went to Southern Virginia University.
And why did you go there?
I originally was set up to go to Boise State, not on a scholarship or anything. I had an academic scholarship, but I had a good experience visiting there, and I wanted to just walk onto the football team there. That was my plan, and I had that set up until about a month before I was ready to leave for college. And then I got a call. I think it was from like the Department of Football, and they told me that walk-on tryouts they weren't having anymore. They had a full roster this season, so they weren't going to have any walk-on tryouts. So I wanted to just play football. I didn't really want to just go to school. So I was like, is there any other options? But it was really late in the game. I already kind of turned down a lot of recruitment.
Yeah.
But one team, this coach, he'd reached out and basically said, you can come. It doesn't matter, And that was the coach that was at Southern Virginia University. That coach actually who got in touch with me, he eventually left before I got there. And I was a new coach by the name of Danny Dupay. He had been a coach with the Navy football team.
Gotcha.
And so then I was able to go out there my freshman year of college.
Now, how big a school is that?
At the time, we're talking about 600 students total.
600 students. So basically, compared to Big's, a big high school.
Pretty much, yeah. Basically, like Gridley High School down the road, I believe their enrollment's similar.
Okay.
Basically, kind of like that. And I mean, you'd remember this too, but got there. We'd never done a visit or anything, right?
Yeah.
Most kids, they go to a school, they're gonna visit it at least
Sure.
once. I remember showing up, and it was interesting. Going up to their stadium, and they have decent turf field,
Yeah.
the AstroTurf type stuff, but no stands. There was not a single bleacher up there. It was just flat ground, which I'd never seen, not even at the high school level. And no locker room. We were stuck in a locker room that's now their baseball locker room. It was just down by the campus. It was basically just a closet. It was just a closet, an expanded closet that they had these old wooden lockers in. And we all just kind of huddled around in there. It was super hot. And of course, the oldest jerseys you can imagine, they were not the best. They were definitely hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience. But of course, I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, that was kind of an interesting situation.
Yeah.
But at the time, just wanting to play college football, I was excited. I didn't really care at
And
the
that
moment.
was what division was that?
That is Division III.
Division III. Okay. So you go to Southern Virginia your first year, and you played football, and the last game of the season, what happened there?
Yeah. So I started off, as a quarterback, went to receiver, then got back to quarterback. So the whole season I was the second string to another quarterback. And I had a few games where I went in and played, and I did pretty well. But really throughout the whole season, I didn't know that I was the backup. Our coach had a bad habit of he wouldn't tell us, you're number 1, you're number 2, you're number
Gotcha.
3 in the depth chart. He just kind of knew, we just all knew we were backup. So we're like, okay, whatever. But I was the freshman. I was the only freshman quarterback, so I figured I'm never going in.
And you did what on the sidelines?
Yeah, I was so this, I don't know if they'd even do this anymore, but I had a clipboard and a paper, and every play that our offense ran, I had to get it from our coach and write it down.
So
they
you
could have
were
a
the
script.
clipboard boy.
Yes, I was. I had a clipboard, and like I said, I don't think they do this anymore because I haven't seen anyone do it. But yeah, every play I'd have to ask our coach, like, what was that play? And then I write it down so that they could have a record of every play they ran.
Gotcha.
So that's what I did all season. And then our last game of the season, we were playing Christopher Newport University, which they're another team in Virginia. They're considered our rival, but let's be real, they're not. They were usually a lot better than us, but they were like one of the biggest stadiums, like thousands of people there, and it was a really full house because we were their rival, and so we were all sitting there warming up probably like 10 minutes before game time. Everything's normal. I'm thinking, all right, I'm just going to be on the sideline, then get the heck out of here.
Got your pencil sharpened up.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm honestly at that point, I'm kind of thinking, what's for dinner? What are we picking up? Because that's just kind of how it is when you're a backup. But then our starting quarterback all of a sudden tells the coach he has a headache.
Oh boy.
And and so
we've heard that from Brady.
Yeah. So I was, no one really thought anything of it. But then coach said, hey, he's out. And he came to me and said, all right, you're starting. You ready? And I was like, well, all right. I guess I have to be ready, right? I don't really have an option. And so I ended up starting that game, which, that was my first time starting in a college football game. And let's be honest, like it didn't turn out well. I completed some passes. We had a very interesting offense. We ran, if you know what it is, the triple option, which does not include a lot of passing.
Gotcha.
It's a lot of running the ball. And so I completed a few passes, ran the ball a few times, but we may have scored one touchdown that game, got beat by a good amount. But I will say that, even though it wasn't like the biggest college football scene ever, man, it was the coolest thing at that time, being that age and just being able to I remember one time in that game where we were backed up, like it was like 3rd and 20, and there was just no hope. But I remember they had their band, like 100-person band in the back, just blaring right on your back, and the fans were all screaming, and they're all screaming against us, right? Because we're away. And I remember in that moment, everyone was all worried, but in that moment, I remember thinking in my head, I was like, this is cool. Because it was so loud, and I couldn't hear a thing. And but I remember just not even being nervous or mad at all. I was just like, this is a cool.
Well, that's what you
awesome.
watch on TV all the
time.
Yeah,
it's like, obviously, it wasn't like hundreds of thousands like you see, but in your head it is, because you're that young. It's like, this is awesome. Even though they all hate me in here, it's like, it's still cool.
So you did the Southern Virginia season, and then what happens after Southern Virginia? So Southern Virginia, a semester.
Yeah, just a semester.
So you did a semester until December, and then what?
Then I went on a church service mission with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is the church that we attend. So that sent me. So when you do a service mission for the church, you get sent to a place in the world. It can be in a lot of different places. Certain countries right now you don't go to for obvious political reasons. Or the U.S. Yeah. So I ended up getting my call to serve. I went to Merida, Mexico, which, if you don't know where that is, it's at the very south of Mexico, right by Cancun. It's the state of Yucatan. So that's where I was for 2 years. So when you go down there, what you do on a mission is you basically go and you teach people about Jesus Christ, about the gospel that he taught, and you try to get them, to understand. And if they want to get baptized or want to accept that, then they can do that. But your biggest thing there also is just to focus on service. Yeah. A lot of things that we did was just service stuff, like cutting people's lawns, something that's way different there because they cut their lawns with machetes rather than just lawnmowers, and just doing all sorts of stuff.
Well, how was your Spanish?
Yeah,
going there, because to me, you're going to nothing but Spanish speaking.
Yeah.
So how does that work with this whole deal? How'd that come about?
So when you start off your mission, you go to what's called an MTC, which is a missionary training center. They have one in Mexico City, which is the one that I attended, because usually if you're going to speak Spanish, you go to that one because that's what they focus on. And that's right plopped in the middle of Mexico City, which I'm sure many have maybe not gone, but that is a crowded city. It is humongous. And it's just this little compound in the middle of the city. And there for 6 weeks, you're basically speaking in Spanish all 6 weeks. That's all you're doing. You're speaking in Spanish, learning how to obviously teach some lessons and teach about Jesus Christ and stuff in that language. But basically, you're just trying to learn how to communicate, because that's the biggest thing. It's a very interesting experience, very kind of monotonous and boring. And you don't really get to go out. You're focused on the training there because we didn't get to go outside of the place that we were at. We heard all kinds of stuff. You heard gunshots and drive-bys about every night that you were sleeping, so you're kind of happy you're in there. But yeah, that's how you start off learning. You're just kind of learning and using the language every day. But when you leave the MTC after those 6 weeks, you don't really know how to speak it properly. Like you don't know how to communicate. At that moment I couldn't go and talk to someone in Spanish confidently at all. I could make a few phrases and sentences, but not like later on.
Well, we may have jumped ahead a bit because when you came home from Southern Virginia after that semester, and then you got prepared to go on your mission. When you went to go on your mission, you had to give up what?
Oh yeah, that's
and leave Mom and I and your brothers
yeah.
at the airport.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Where'd you go from there? So you left there, but what did you have to give up that's probably monumental to most people?
You had to give up technology, basically. So you have to give up technology in the form of you're not taking a cell phone, your smartphone or anything. You're not going to have a laptop, tablet, any kind of thing like that. And then so when you do have use of technology there, when you're on the mission at that moment, now obviously it's different in every mission, but in our mission there in Mexico, you had a phone between you and your companion, what they call it, which is another missionary that you're with. But it was one of the Nokia phones that you could find. They sell them there at gas stations. So you just buy them from a gas station. That's where they get them. And then your form of communication, as far as if you want to talk to your family, you could talk every week, usually Monday. You got about hour, 2 hours to email your family.
When you were in the MTC.
Yeah, in the MTC, and that's also leads into the mission as well. You had 1 to 2 hours every week to email your family. You couldn't talk to them. It got to the point to where we couldn't even text. On email, sometimes you have a text chat box that you can have. We couldn't even do that. We could only email and then call it good. You could email other people too, but you only had that once each week. And then also, you had 2 times in the year that you could call your family on a FaceTime type call. Skype is what we would use.
Yeah.
And so you would get Mother's Day and Christmas that you get to call. And it's kind of tough too because we didn't have our own computers and the houses don't, so we'd have to go and pay. They don't even know if they have them in America that often. Is the internet cafes?
Gotcha.
You have to go to there for 2 hours and pay.
Now you left us that day. You left your phone with us. You got on a plane to go to Salt Lake to get with some other missionaries who were going there as well.
Yeah.
So we knew that you got to Salt Lake because you called, but then after that, we didn't have a clue if you landed or what until you emailed us. I think it was the next day.
It was, so you get there to the MTC, and it's honestly almost like you're writing a ransom note if you've been kidnapped, because you get there and I don't know how they do it now, but when we got there, they were like, okay, so you're going to email your family and let them know that you got here safe, but that's it. You're just going to tell them like one sentence, hey, I'm here safe. I'll talk to you next week. So it's like you don't get to talk anymore about like, oh, here's my experience. I had such a good time doing this and that. They tell you like, do not say more than like one sentence. Hey, I'm good. I'm here. I'll talk to you next week.
Gotcha.
And so that was it. And then you're just off doing whatever you got there.
So you did the 6 weeks at the Missionary Training Center. Then they ship you to the Yucatan, right?
Yep, that's right.
And you go there. You get with your companion, whoever that is, and that companion changes what?
So normally, you get what these things are called. They call transfers. And those are every 6 weeks normally. So normally you'd be with one companion for 6 weeks, and that's normal. And then it could either change. You could either get a new companion, or you could stay the same. You could switch to a different area because there were a ton of areas in a mission, and so you could change areas. You could do a bunch of different stuff. My first, I want to say 2 months. I started off with having 2 companions. I had one American and one from Mexico. So that wasn't normal, but we were just in a trio is what we call it. And so I was with them, but then the American went somewhere else. So then it was just me and a person from Mexico. And then after that, he got switched up and I got another companion. But that only lasted for about 2 weeks. Yeah. And then we both got switched up. They closed our area. I got moved to a different place with another companion, And then within because the transfer was almost over at that point. So then in about 2 weeks, I got another companion.
So you have these people coming in and out of your life every 6 weeks, possibly.
Yeah.
You run into good people, bad people. What's your?
It's kind of like, I would compare it to just like real life. You're never gonna get along with every person. And now, luckily for me, I think I ended up having over 20 companions in my mission total, which is, I think that's a lot. Majority of them, I can probably count 2 to 3 that I did not get along with, but it was definitely like I did not get along with them, because I find myself, I feel like I can get along with most people, but like these were people who, like, as soon as I met them, it was like, this person does not like me, and therefore it's going to be hard for me to like them.
But you had to learn how to deal with them.
Yeah, because you're in these areas, and it is your area. You're in your companions. You are not normally, there's sometimes where you're in a group, in an area with 2 companionships, but normally it's you and him. You have an apartment that you live in. So it's almost like, it sounds weird, but it's almost like being married. It's like you are with that person, and if you have a problem, you got to work it out. You don't have the option to just, I'm going to go buy get a hotel room and stay there for the night. You are with that person for those 6 weeks or more if you're unlucky and you don't like the person. So it's really tough, because it teaches you how to get along with somebody you don't like, even though you have to get something done. It's a lot like a job. You're going to work with people you don't like, but you got to deal with it. But in a mission, it's times 10, because you don't get to go home.
You don't
after.
get to leave. Now, you drove a car, rode a bike. What's your got?
In Mexico, we did not have a car. There were like probably 2 areas in the whole mission that they allowed bikes. So we would walk every day.
And the reason for no bikes?
That's a good question.
Was it theft or?
It might have been theft. I don't know if they just didn't want to spend the money on getting all the bikes.
Gotcha.
I have no clue. They only had, I think, 2 or 3 areas that had bikes. And I think they only got them for areas that had a long distance to travel certain places, whereas other ones, you're kind of close. You could walk most places, so they didn't worry about it.
So you put a lot of miles on.
Yeah, I think we saw like the average. One guy had like I don't know what kind of watch he had, but he could calculate. It wasn't a Fitbit or anything, but like he could calculate how many miles he walked, and we were pushing like probably 14 miles a day.
A day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you're walking, of course, as a missionary, you're walking around in a button-up white shirt, tie, slacks, and dress shoes. And so that's what you're wearing every day. And in Mexico, in Merida at least, it's pretty close to the equator, so you're dealing with like high humidity. And I don't think there was one time in the year where it got below 65 degrees.
What did you sleep in?
Yeah, in Merida, because it's so hot there, most people, and we did too, we slept in hammocks.
You're talking about like Gilligan's Island.
Pretty much, yeah. So each house has these hooks. You don't have any beds or anything, and they're not really AC. The mission kind of bought some ACs later on, but so you have your hammock and you hook it onto these hooks that are in the house, and that's where you sleep. That's pretty much it.
And that didn't mess your back up.
Mine, luckily, no. I knew a lot of missionaries who went home because they got back troubles and they couldn't handle it. It was very awkward, obviously. If you're not used to it, you sleep on it the first night and you're so tired because you got there, you left the airport at like 4 a.m. or whatever, and you get there and all you want to do is sleep, and you're just folded up because you don't know how to sleep. So you had to figure out that, like, okay, I need to sleep like diagonal so I can lay out somewhat straight.
Oh.
And then, if you wanted to, I remember a lot of times, one nice thing to do would be to kick off the wall and you kind of swing yourself how you would normally to relax on a hammock. So you just kind of had to figure out how to make it work. It was tough at first, but then I remember towards the end of my mission, I slept like a baby every night. I don't think I ever tossed and turned, and I never used to sleep like on my back, but I just got used to sleeping on my back. And most people didn't do this, but I was really cheap and like really lazy. Most people buy a pillow. I think I had an extra towel that you'd usually use to just dry yourself off after a shower. I think I just used that for the whole 2 years. I had a towel for a pillow.
Now, did you have hot showers down there?
No. There were small places. So I remember one area I had out of I don't remember how many, that actually had a water heater, but on the thing, the renter, the landowner said, if you use this, you pay for it. I'm not paying for extra heat. And it was not like the water heaters you have in America, usually the super tall ones. It was this little tiny thing.
Well, like an RV water
heater.
heater.
Pretty much an RV water heater. So If so, I never used the water heat. I never heated my water during the mission. It's all cold. So what they have, what they call it, I believe it was tinaco, was what they call it. It's just a tank on top of the house, and it's just the water's just gravity fed. So that tank fills up to a certain point, and then when you need water, it just drops in, gravity fed, and that's how you get your water. So it's not heated. There were some missionaries who, if they wanted heated water, you'd have to get a pot, put it on the stove, heat up their water, and then they take a cup and just bathe themselves. But I never wanted to do that because I was like, I'm not going to go through that much effort.
So you would sleep in a little like rented apartment, you and your companion type of thing?
Yeah, it was rented. So the mission would set up the lease and everything. It'd be with the mission. And then luckily the mission gave you the money for the rent. But as a companionship, you had to pay for whatever electricity you used, water.
What about your food and stuff like that?
You also had to pay for that.
So you guys would go together and buy your food for the week or whatever?
Yeah, you'd go wherever was nearby. Sometimes you got lucky and you had a place that you would, like a Walmart or like, a normal grocery store, but their version of it. And I had some areas where the closest thing to a grocery store that you had was like a Dollar Tree type place.
Oh,
and
boy.
So that's what you had for the week. So you get some cereal, some milk, and you just kind of make do.
Now, did you get fed there by members or people on the street, or how?
That's part of the reason why you survive is because you don't have a ton of money for food. So their big meal, like in the United States, I feel personally that our big meal is dinner that we have. We have lunch, we have breakfast, and those can be big. But our big meal here is dinner. But their big meal is lunch. They eat a big lunch, and then whatever else they just kind of eat light. So, and they do everything a lot later. They're kind of like, a little bit later on everything that they do. So instead of at 12 o'clock, we would have our lunches at 2. And that was minimum. Like that was the minimum because sometimes it could be 3, just depending on what they were doing, what they wanted to do.
Wow.
So you'd get fed there at the church. They'd have members sign up each week for, okay, I'm going to feed the missionaries Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so you'd have food normally. There were some times where no one would sign up and you just kind of be on your own, which those were not fun times. But so yeah, you'd get fed by a member pretty much every day at about 2 o'clock.
What did they feed you?
Man, when I got there, I love Mexican food. I always have.
Was there like Casalupe and Los Charros there?
No. I was really surprised because, I'm as an American, I'm thinking, oh, I'm in Mexico, I'm going to be eating enchiladas, burritos, tacos, good stuff every day. And I remember like the first 2-3 weeks, every day I had what they call caldo, which is basically like a soup or a stew. It's just water with chicken. It's like a broth. It's just chicken, a bunch of vegetables, and a bunch of oil put in the water. And that's what you have. And they give you what they eat there a lot. The hot sauce that I guess that you would have there is they'd have habanero, which if you've never had habanero, that stuff is hot. If you eat the core of that thing, you might as well prepare to go to the ER because it is hot. And so they'll have it, I remember multiple times we'd be eating this caldo, which is this soup, super hot already. And then they'd have this cup of salsa of habanero. I didn't know what it was before. And sometimes they don't have an inside part to sit you in. So you're sitting outside in the sun. And then I'm putting this hot sauce into my soup, and I mean every sip of the water is like just burning my lips. And you don't want, but also you feel bad because they don't have a lot of money, a lot of those people there, so you don't want to be like, I can't eat this.
You don't want to offend them.
Yeah, so you're just trying to gut it down, and like it's doing everything in my power not to just bawl because it's so hot.
Did you ever get the squirts back there?
Oh, absolutely, you do. It just comes with the territory of a mission, and if you go out of the country, I feel
yeah,
because you're gonna have, especially without having a car, there's some bad situations you get into where you're gonna be done eating, you'll be miles from the house and miles from any public restroom, which they didn't even have a lot of, and you're like, this is bad. This is not gonna end well. So luckily, nothing too bad ever happened, but. Yeah, I remember I got sick because the one time I got really sick and had stomach pain was we were eating at a member's house and they were serving us chicken. And I remember before watching them prepare the chicken, and there was probably 60, not mosquitoes, 60 flies walking around on the chicken breast. And, at the time I was like, it's probably not a big deal because I'd eaten worse, in that time. And literally 10 minutes after leaving, I was like, I got to go home. and I was out in the house for about 2 days max, and I couldn't move. I was so sick.
Oh
So
man.
it definitely, and I luckily I have a pretty strong gut, I feel like, so I didn't have it too bad. But there were some missionaries, they got an infection or they got some type of bug that went inside their stomach, and they had to go home.
Oh
They
boy.
couldn't make it.
So you do this mission and you come back home to Southern Virginia after 2 years.
Yep.
You pick right back up in the football scene.
Yep. So I came back quarterback again.
Okay.
Came back. I'd been working on it on the mission too. I remember multiple times on my mission where I was working out in the middle of the street in Mexico, and a bunch of people just watch me because I mean they don't really like football. They don't really know a lot. They'd come up and poke me like, "What are you doing?" And I'd be like dropping back and like doing fake handoffs and like acting like I'm throwing it, and just getting myself trying to get ready. So I had many things like that. So came back as a quarterback again.
You told us one time though you did a pass to one of your companions and he didn't know how to catch the ball very well.
Oh man, so like I felt like I threw pretty hard, obviously compared to them, because it's just a thing, in Mexico, a lot of these kids, unless they play baseball, they don't really use their hands for any sports because it's soccer is the big deal there. So seeing these guys, they're catching it with like the edges of their palms, and man, none of them would want to. That's why I'd have to fake like I was passing it, because none of them would want to throw it with me. They'd all get scared, like I'm not breaking my nose with you, and so they'd stay inside, and I'm like, that's fine. I guess I'll just imagine that I'm throwing it.
So you had the quarterback mentality still when you came back.
Yeah.
And then how did the season go from there?
So the start, when I first got back, I thought I was pretty ready, and physically I was in good shape, but I didn't understand how much a mission would affect my body. I remember running the first times at practice, because when I went my first semester back before my mission, I was the fastest. If I wasn't the fastest, I was like the second fastest on the team. So I came back expecting kind of the same result. And I mean, I would run and my back would hurt so bad,
Oh,
like my
wow.
lower back. I was so stiff, like my joints, and it's just because I hadn't been running or working out. I'd worked out, but not running in the mission a lot.
Yeah.
I'd walked a lot, but I didn't realize how much walking that much affected your body and just destroyed it. And so I remember my coach, who was there before my mission, he told me, he's like, your biggest mission this summer or this off season, you need to just stretch every day. I don't care if you do anything else, just stretch because you are stiff as a board. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, I feel it. I need to get. So that it was tough to get back into it in that way. But the spring football got into that, and that went all well. I was throwing it pretty good. I was right there in the running for the starter. It was me and two other guys at the time that were there, and both guys that had been there before that I'd known. But it was going good. Everything was going well. The only thing was just my athleticism. My running was not there, but luckily in the spring that wasn't a big deal because you weren't really doing much. And
Yeah.
in the Division III level of football, in the spring you can't use pads or anything, so you're just in shirts and shorts, and
Sure.
you're just doing basic
Yeah.
football stuff. And then in the summer you don't get to come onto campus at all. You have to stay off until season starts.
Gotcha.
So
So then you went from quarterbacking, because the one game that I got to see you play actually live, we could watch it every Saturday on the TV. They had it on the web. You went to the special teams side.
yeah, so when the season started in the spring, it wasn't a big issue, but then when season started, I had this injury in high school. It wasn't very severe, but I had tendonitis, which is, I guess, what you say, tennis elbow in high school, where, my elbow would just kind of get inflamed. It'd get really sore, and it'd make it hard for me to throw. But in high school, I took care of it. It wasn't really a big deal, and maybe that was because I wasn't throwing it very hard at such
Sure.
a young age. But then when I got older and I hadn't been throwing the ball a ton on my mission, because, again, no one wanted
Yeah.
to throw with me, I kind of lost the getting my arm warm. And so when it got into August, into football actually starting the season, I got tennis elbow, this tendonitis again, and I have a picture of a few weeks in, my right arm where I was throwing, it was like double the size all the way up until about the shoulder than my left.
Wow.
It was all swollen up, and I showed my coach. I was like, yeah, this is painful. And I'd never had it that bad, but it made it so I couldn't even sleep at night. It was just throbbing and like pulsing every night. It made it really hard. So throwing was just a nightmare. I'd have to pop a bunch of ibuprofen and put icy hot, and it still didn't do anything. So I went through the beginning of the season as a quarterback, and I was the backup, and my coach basically said, like, hey, if your elbow is not feeling great, like, you can choose whatever position you want. You go to it, and we'll put you on there. And so I ended up deciding on receiver because I figured I'd done that a little bit before when I first got to Southern Virginia.
Yeah.
And I did pretty good. So I went there to that team, and they'd already had established starters. They'd already had people who'd already been there. So there wasn't a lot of hope for me to start at that moment. But I did get to go on, and I got onto special teams. You kind of make it where you can when you don't have a position or if you have to switch positions. So I went to special teams, and throughout the season, I kind of worked in, and I ended up starting on every special teams, and I was even holding for the kick for the extra points. Yeah, so that ended up working out. I was able to play, and it was kind of worked out because I switched to receiver like 3 weeks into the season. So I was already kind of at a disadvantage. And the receiver room there, I think they had like 20 kids because they just didn't turn anyone away. So they had like 20 receivers at the time. So my biggest chance to play at that season was on special teams, and I kind of made it work. It was a lot of fun. It's just, anytime you can just get out on the field and play, it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
So.
No, to play college ball, period, is in my opinion, is an accomplishment by any means. Yeah. So you do Southern Virginia, you do that year now, right? Yeah. 2 semesters.
Yeah, I think it was about a year and a half when it got said and done. So.
Okay, so year and a half at Southern Virginia. You meet somebody at Southern Virginia, and by the way, you told Mom and I the first semester you were there, there's no good-looking girls here, Dad.
No,
they're none at all. I don't know why I'm not going to find my wife here. And then what?
So I got back from my mission, and the first week I was at Southern Virginia again, so the second time, I found my wife, who would eventually become my wife, Abby. I met her, talked to her. She was sitting in the cafeteria, so I went and introduced myself and just talked to her. Never would have done that before. I don't know what got into me that day.
You got like your dad in.
Yeah. And so I introduced myself, and later that night I asked her out on a date. And then from there, it's basically history. We dated the rest of our time there.
And where's Abby from?
She is originally she grew up in Texas, I believe kind of near the Dallas area.
Well, there you go. That's the reason. Cowboy fan.
She's from there originally, but then when she got to, I think, her 8th grade year, she moved to Missouri, northern Missouri.
Gotcha.
So she came from there and went out to Southern Virginia, and she'd been there about a semester before I got there. Okay. So she was still a freshman, and technically I was still a freshman.
Yeah.
Counting the time.
Because you got to take your leave, right, when you went on your mission.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt your eligibility to play.
Yeah, it just freezes you basically like you went off the face of the earth.
Gotcha.
For 2 years.
So you meet her there, and you're both not from there. And if you don't know where Southern Virginia is, it's basically in Virginia, it would be the east side of Virginia, kind of in the middle to the east. And kind of in the middle of the state.
Kind of, yeah, towards the southern part, but yeah, it's not. It's kind of towards the middle a little bit.
And Lexington is just across the way.
Roanoke's about 45 to an hour.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's kind of where Southern Virginia is. A lot of historic things happened there back in the day. Mm-hmm. So you both decide to go to Missouri Western.
Yes.
And what was that reason for?
So there were a few reasons. First off, me at Southern Virginia, it was a liberal arts school. I didn't really I went into it with a business degree in mind. I took a lot of classes there, and I was doing good in those, but I never really had an interest in it. Like, I always, you'd always told me to, do something that makes you happy, do something that you're going to enjoy doing, and I'm not the best at math, so I could already see that would probably be an issue going forward, and I could probably make it work, but I just wanted to do something more entertaining. So I don't know really what got into it. I think honestly started, we watched a lot of Criminal Minds, and I really liked that show, and started talking about it a little bit, and it wasn't really until I came home for the summer, I think, of 2019 that I talked to Mom, and she kind of talked about, maybe, hey, have you ever thought about doing law enforcement? Uh-huh. And I told her, I was like, I've kind of been thinking about that recently. I don't know why you bring it up, but it's like, yeah, I've kind of been thinking about that. And it just so happened that Abby, her dad teaches criminal justice classes at Missouri Western State, which is a school out in northwest Missouri. And so it kind of worked out that we started talking to him, and he told me, he helped me out so much. He mapped out basically my whole college career from that point forward and said, if you come here, you can finish your bachelor's in this amount of time, and you can even finish your master's in this amount of time because there's an accelerated program. So I'd be getting done with school with my master's a lot quicker. And he said, he'd help me out with anything that I need because he's in the criminal justice program. He's one of the teachers
No,
there.
you can't hardly beat that off.
No. And on top of that, because he was a teacher there, Abby, she wasn't sure exactly what she wanted to do, but she figured out she wanted to go into communication. But the big benefit to that was we went to that school, and she would be able to go to school for free because as a teacher, as a professor there, her dad got a discount on any of her students, on any of her children attending there. So she went to school for free the whole time at Missouri Western.
It was a double whammy.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, it was great. And
so you get married, and then you guys go out to Missouri Western. Is that correct?
Got married in the year 2019. It was December 27th. So got married, and then the semester would have started early January. I think like maybe the 13th or something.
Okay.
And so basically got married, went on our honeymoon, then went out to Missouri to start getting school.
And you got a little place you rent back there for $550 or whatever.
Yeah. Got a nice little 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. We rent. It's a little duplex, but it worked out. We were able to find it on Facebook Marketplace before we got there, and we kind of had everything set up. It was kind of working out perfectly.
Just got to disregard the smoke smell, but
yeah.
Good.
But that comes again with the territory of renting. You just kind of got to roll with whatever you're dealt.
So you get that. So now Now we're playing football for Missouri Western.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. David, my father-in-law, he actually helped me out a lot with that too because we got there. He didn't know anyone on the football team, but they were in their fall practices, and I remember just walking into the indoor practice facility there. They were all practicing. They had no idea who I was. I just walked up to a coach. I was like, "Hey, how do I get on this team?" Because I didn't have time. I didn't know we were even going there until a couple months before. So I wasn't getting recruited, and I couldn't at the time because I didn't have my paperwork in that I could transfer before that. So I just was just like, well, I want to play football there, so let me just see how I can walk on. Like I wasn't interested in getting a scholarship or anything because I knew I wouldn't. So I just talked to a guy, and he was like, okay, well, here's this email, get in contact. And, emailed them, and it took forever. Sometimes they're busy, and just I eventually got to talk with the head coach, Coach Williamson there, and talked to him for a little bit, and he told me that spring that I first got there that I wouldn't be on the team, that I would just they already were starting things. So he said, just come in the summer when all the freshmen and all of the new people are going to be here, and then you can start then. So I had basically that whole spring to get ready to go and try and walk onto the team. And so then spring went through, got done with that, and of course this is during COVID, so that was all going on as well. So got there in July, I think just like a couple days after 4th of July, and got there and walked onto the team. It was basically a lot of weightlifting, workouts and stuff, and the coach told me, he said, you come here and you perform well, and you come and show up to every single workout and you're never late, you'll be on the team. You just got to perform. You got to show us that you can perform well. So I was like, okay. And so I guess I performed good enough because he got me a spot on the team, and just started working out with them. That was an interesting season though to start off because of COVID.
Yeah.
Basically our whole season got canceled.
Yeah.
We were gonna play a full schedule, but then they canceled it. Ended up playing a few games that season, but most of them got canceled because our coaches or other coaches got COVID.
So you do that season, you come back around to the next season, and you're getting ready to play in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then where do we go during that season?
So got to the summer, and things were looking good. I was going to probably get some playing time at receiver this time. I was most likely going to be playing also some special teams as well. Got to fall camp, which is in August, and then so fall camp was this really terrible month. Even if you like football, you just could not stand it because it was 6 a.m. until 9:30 every day, football stuff all day. And that was for a full month. Most places, they only go a couple weeks. We did the full month. Don't ask me why we did that. But so got to the very last day. So we were going to our first week. We were going to play Central Oklahoma was the school. That first practice of our first week of the season, I ended up snapping my ankle.
How?
So it had been bothering me all early of that season. The whole fall camp had kind of been bothering me, but I didn't think anything of it. The doctor thought that it had a minor fracture before, and it was just aggravated. And then so I caught a pass in practice, and I cut up field, And as I cut up field, I planted. It was my left foot, and it was the bone inside. If you guys know the little bump on the inside, or the little on your ankle, I planted with my left foot, and then I got hit from the side. And I don't know exactly how it happened. I think I just left my foot planted there when I got hit, and the just shift of momentum of the top half of my body, it just snapped it completely. And I'd felt pain on my ankle that whole fall camp, but then as soon as I got up there, I was like, oh no, this is different. I thought it was just a sprain. I told my coach, I was like, I'm out. I'm not going anymore. And then so I went over there and sat. Took forever to get one of the trainers to look at me. I'm sitting over there, the head trainer. I look over. I had to walk over on my broken ankle and look. I was like, did you see me just break this right here? He's like, did you see me do that? He's like, oh no, I didn't see that. I was like, I need some ice on this. And he was like, okay. So I didn't know it was broken. I walked all the way up the hill to our locker room. I had no clue, and I didn't really have an idea.
Well, you're a Wolverine. That's why.
Yeah. I didn't have an idea until that night when I was sleeping that it was broken, because I felt it directly on that spot, and I was like, yeah, that doesn't feel good. Got x-rays the next day, and then they told me it was broken. And they weren't sure I needed surgery at the time. Ended up not having to need surgery, which was lucky. It broke completely, but it luckily stayed in this good spot where it was going to heal right back.
Oh.
But the healing was going to I want to say it took like 8 to 10 weeks with a boot on and with crutches, and then after that barely weight bearing for
which pretty much season's over.
Yeah, season's over. You play at that level in college, you play 10 to 12 games. I think we played 11 that season, and your season's over by that point, even with playoffs or anything.
And now Missouri is a division.
They're Division II.
Division II.
And that was an interesting, kind of jump as well, because, anytime you go higher in college football, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a huge jump. That was another thing I kind of noticed. Kind of the same with high school. Speed just increases a little bit. But you'd be surprised, anyone who's kind of looking into getting into college football, it's not as big a jump as you'd think. When you start playing, when you're in the game, you realize these are all just guys my age.
Yeah.
Some of them, obviously, you run into some. I played with a guy who just got drafted by the Oakland Raiders this past draft, Sam Webb, so we'll see how he does. But, you see guys like that, and obviously you're like, okay, he's a few steps above everyone else. He's an elite athlete. But for the most part, you play and you go up a level. It's surprising how much you're like, okay, I can compete here. I'm not behind. Doesn't matter what high school I came from or what I was at before. I can compete here. I can do good here. And then you get your confidence there. But, so the Division II definitely went up a little bit, but it was interesting to see how, you were able to compete still.
Now, just a side note on that school you went to, that has the Chiefs. That's actually their spring training facility?
Yeah, it is. They have so Missouri Western has, like, for Division II, they have, like, state-of-the-art stuff. They have a really nice stadium seating. They have, I think, the biggest Jumbotron in Division II. It's pretty big. Indoor practice facility, which a lot of places don't have. And then for the Chiefs, specifically, there were 2 fields with, like, the best grass you could imagine, specifically for the Chiefs. Like, we were not allowed. I think I've been on that field, like, twice. We were not allowed to go on that, and our trainer got in trouble for taking us out on that one time. So that was specifically for the Chiefs. So in the summertime, for I don't know how long training camp is, might have been 3-4 weeks. The Chiefs come there and they use our facilities. So we're kicked out of our locker room. We have to go down to the lacrosse locker room for like 4 weeks. And they're out there doing their thing. Mahomes, all of them are there.
Yeah.
So surprisingly, we don't get any perks from that, really.
That's crazy.
I thought as a team, I was like, hey, we're going to hear Tyrann Mathieu speak. We're going to hear Mahomes, Kelsey, someone.
Throw me some balls,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I was like, we're going to hear someone speak here, right?
Yeah.
We didn't get nothing.
Nothing.
We didn't. We
Get
were
out of here, boy.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to use our field, anything. We couldn't use our locker room. We were just kind of put to the side. So, but you get good benefits because we did have nice stuff.
Oh
so
yeah. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was last season. No season after the break. You go ahead and you come into this year, which is 2022. You graduate just recently.
Yeah.
And might I say, magna cum laude. That to me is impressive. And if you don't know what cum laude is honors, magna cum laude is high honors, and summa cum laude is the highest honors. You graduated magna cum laude, and Abby, your wife, graduated last December with summa cum laude.
Yeah.
So obviously, you got something from me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, that's just, yeah. I don't even think they had laudes when I graduated.
Yeah. I don't. You weren't there long enough to figure it out. That's the problem.
So you graduate, and now you are going to have one more semester. This fall semester, you will graduate again with your master's in criminal justice, but forensic investigation.
Yeah,
correct?
that's what it would be. Hopefully that's how it goes.
So you'll get that. Your plan is to work here, correct, in Cali?
So far, the plan, I've been in contact with some people, so I want to work here in Butte County Sheriff's Department, and so that means that I would start doing the academy, I believe at Butte College, come January, and then from there go forward. So.
Why don't you say maybe a couple of phrases for us in Spanish to close out, and then we'll go after that and we'll talk just for a bit.
What would you like me to talk about?
Well, why don't you say how much you like your mom and dad and your brothers and your whole experience growing up to this point?
Pues mi experiencia, pues amo a mi mamá, mi papá, también mis hermanos me ayudaban con un buen de cosas, la verdad. Pues me ayudaron a crecer, a pues jugar deportes, a hacer muchas cosas dentro de la escuela y también afuera en la iglesia, pero realmente me aman, pues me ayudaban con todo lo que hice con llegar a la universidad, todo lo que hice en mi vida, te doy gracias a ellos, porque me ayudaban con todo lo que tengo hoy es gracias a él, porque me enseñaron buenas cosas cuando era un niño. Y estoy muy agradecido por ellos y toda mi experiencia es aquí en Biggs, California, porque realmente no voy a olvidar de ellos, porque tengo muchos amigos, muchas memorias de todo lo que hice.
So I just say, sí.
Yeah.
And you see, I already, told you I know Spanish, taco, burrito.
Yeah,
right?
I heard.
So, Brenden, I thank you tremendously for joining me today and on this program. And I wish the best for you and Abby. I hope and pray you stay around here. And I know your brothers do. That's for sure. So, thank you again. Brenden, you have anything else you want to add?
No, I'm happy I was able to come on.
I appreciate it. Thank you again for listening to Front Row Chaos. You can find this podcast on any of the major carriers. We just passed the 550 download section. This is going to be number 10 episode on the podcast. And we hope to continue to do this every week with something new and exciting for you to listen to, maybe learn something, maybe just laugh. But whatever it is, please continue to join us on this show, Front Row Chaos. Have a great day.
Discovery, go at throttle up.